Welcome back to another episode of Hello Ladies, where feminism meets pro wrestling. I am your host, Sabrina Hannon, and returning, we have a very special guest host, MJ.
Hey everyone.
I also love for anyone watching this, I did a Vanna White words, like just automatically, like you're in the room with me, and here she is.
I keep defaulting to jazz hands. I don't know. I don't know if that's my new thing or what, but it just comes out every time. My spirit fingers.
Yeah. Um, so this is today we're going to be doing a continuation of the series, Women Wrestling Forgot, and a favorite of both of ours, Jacqueline Moore to be exact. Yeah. I think when we initially talked, when we did the interview of you for the podcast,
Mhm.
that was something we initially bonded over, just like our love of Jacqueline,
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah, for sure.
especially like in an era where women's wrestling didn't have women who could wrestle, and then you have Jacqueline. She really stood out.
Yeah, she really did.
Yeah. So we'll start with some of the more basic details of her. She was born January 6th, 1964, and grew up in Dallas, Texas, just like she is billed. And I mean, when you hear her talk, you get that like Texas twang.
Yep.
Um, and she grew up a wrestling fan. Like she didn't fall into wrestling. This was an active choice that she made, which is really cool because I feel like you don't hear that as often with like women wrestlers from the Attitude Era.
No, not at all.
And her favorites back then, being from Texas, were the Von Erichs, which makes all of the sense.
Yep.
Um, and she has this also like based on her style and her in the ring and the fact that like when you look at her, you're like, even now that she's older, I'm just like, she could kill me if she wanted to. Like she's just very strong looking. And she has a third degree black belt in Taekwondo. Wow, Taekwondo,
hmm
and is experienced in both kickboxing and boxing.
Yeah, she would beat my ass.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd just be like, I'm so sorry I've upset you one time.
I still love you.
This isn't on. But the way she actually got into wrestling was back when there were TV guides, like physical people who are young will not remember this, but there didn't use the before the TV guide was just something you could pull up like almost as an app on your remote. There was a TV guide channel and also a weekly one you could get, and that was printed. And in the printed one for her area, there was an ad that said, "Do you want to become a wrestler? Show up at this gym." And she did. And that's how she wound up being trained by, I'm going to destroy his name, Skander Akbar. The Akbar is the
Okay.
only part I'm confident in, but and she, at least at that time, was the only woman who went to his training school in Dallas. Um,
Well,
yeah,
a
but he,
pioneer,
mhm.
constantly.
Yeah, and that's a theory or like an ongoing theme throughout her career. She's the first of a lot of things. Um, so she debuted in World Class Championship Wrestling in 1988, the year after I was born, and I think before you were born. So
Yep.
she's been at it for a little bit. And according to Wikipedia, her name was Sweet Georgia Brown.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah. Um, she also wrestled in Japan under that name for Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling. Um, and then also in the United States. No, sorry. When she went to the United States Wrestling Association in Memphis from 91 to 96, which was one of the independents she worked, she was known as Miss Texas, MISS, Texas.
Wow.
Not the feminist MS one.
No.
And there she debuted as a heel valet to Eric Embry and Tom Pritchard.
Okay.
And I was just like, Pritchard, that's a very powerful name in wrestling still. Not so much Tom, but I'm assuming his brother. But it wasn't so long into that when she wound up becoming the USWA's first ever women's champion when she won a tournament in March 2nd, 1992. So pretty early on in her career, she was already racking up accolades. It was not all glamour, though, there, as she was also put in a mud pit match and a hair versus hair match, which she lost and had her head shaved. So,
oh my God, I can't imagine.
Yeah, that title she did go on to hold 8 times. I think in the course of, in between 91 and 96. So in the course of 5 years, she held that world women's championship 8 times, which I think is probably the most she held any of the championships she wound up accumulating. In 1993, she was also the first woman to be included in Pro Wrestling Insider's 500.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So for the PWI, some people, for whatever reason, might not know that it stands for Pro Wrestling Insider.
Yeah.
I had zero idea that she was the first woman. Makes sense in a lot of ways. But there were other women at that time, I feel like, that probably should have also made that list at points, but she definitely deserves to be on that as well. I'm just shocked that she was the very first.
That surprises me too, honestly.
I would have thought like Medusa or Mae Young comes to mind. But I also don't know how long. I probably should have looked it up, how long Pro Wrestling Insider had been around at that point. Wouldn't it be hilarious? I'm like, she was the first one ever. And that was like the first year they put it out.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. My mind went to Medusa too. I was like, come on. But you're right. You're totally right.
I haven't read Medusa's book yet. But I definitely want to. I wish like an Ivory or a Jacqueline would put out a book about like their experiences in wrestling at that time. But Ivory's a talker, so maybe she will. Jacqueline doesn't like. We were talking before we started filming, and I had a really hard time even finding interviews with her. There's not a whole lot.
Oh my God, how cool would that be to interview her on this podcast?
I would love to. I did look up her Twitter, and I was like, maybe I can message her on that. And I was like, she hasn't used Twitter since she was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So,
oh wow, okay.
yeah. But yeah, if anyone listening knows Jacqueline Moore, how to get in contact with her, let us know.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I would probably have to take a sedative beforehand.
Yeah, I would probably have to too.
Yeah. Hello, I wanted to be you when I was a little girl.
Maybe that's too much sedatives. I'm just kidding.
Right? It's like, oh, that's so nice. Here's the restraining order. So in Jacqueline's timeline in 93, she made her first appearance in WWE and a Jeff Jarrett promo for WWF at the time. However, she's supposed to do more, but she got injured. So she
Mm.
wasn't signed. It was just supposed to be, I wouldn't even say enhancement talent. I don't know what they would call the women that would randomly show up. But that. But in 1997 to 98, she did work for WCW. Did you see any of the stuff from her time in WCW?
No, I did not watch any WCW at all as a kid, to be honest.
Neither did I. I only watched some of the stuff when preparing for this.
Mm.
So she debuted as Kevin Sullivan's manager. And like when I first saw that name, I'm like, why is that sounding familiar? Because he's not someone I watched wrestle. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, she was his manager. She would do things like body slam his opponents. So she was a very physical manager. But Sullivan was feuding with Chris Benoit because Nancy Benoit, woman in WCW, was Kevin Sullivan's wife. And in storyline, and then eventually in real life, left Kevin for Chris.
Mm.
And there are some vignettes that you can find on YouTube. And it's really upsetting to watch, like now knowing what happens. But there are some, so like Jacqueline worked with all of them. She worked with women, and Jacqueline was obviously a much more physical manager. Like I think one of the things I saw was when women got involved, it was knocking Jacqueline down off of, she was doing a move off of the top rope to
Hmm.
interfere in a match, and women like shook it. Jacqueline was in high heels at like jumping off the top rope, and I was just like, oh, but she like fell on the ropes and then in. So I was like, well, thank goodness she did that, because otherwise she would have like broken both of her ankles.
100%. Oh my gosh.
Um, but Jacqueline does eventually turn on Sullivan in a match against Chris Benoit, and a loser must retire, because he was transitioning from on screen to behind the scenes. I found an interview with Sullivan talking about him, like how he felt working with Jacqueline, and he said he loved working with her, and he had actually pitched and been what he wanted to do was he wanted his career to end in a match against her, and like put her over going out, and have her beat him, which I thought was really cool, because that's
That'd
not,
be awesome. Yeah. That would have
yeah.
been awesome.
And then Jacqueline went to from managing him to managing Harlem Heat, which she did for a very brief time. And she feuded with Disco Inferno, who she defeated at Halloween Havoc.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, same. And Disco Inferno is someone who like he just haunts me, because the only wrestling of WCWs that I ever saw as a kid was a Disco Inferno match when I was visiting my grandmother in a like nursing home that she was recouping from surgery in. And I remember seeing that match as like a little kid, seeing Disco Inferno. I know he won because I remember him getting up on the turnbuckle and doing his little disco moves. And just that in that moment, and cemented all of the negative things I thought about wrestling. And I was just like, what kind of bullshit is this?
Sabrina, you and I always talk about how weird and parallel the things that we do are with each other. And
Yeah.
like literally like, one of the only memories I have of WCW is sometimes my dad would turn the channel back to WCW when it was like WWF was on commercial or whatever. And it was always when Disco Inferno would start to come out. That's like the only real WCW memory from back then that I have, because I feel like we'd all just be like, this is why we watch WWF, you know?
Yep. I I don't know if WWF, like if Vince was paying Disco Inferno, like please go there and do your thing, because you're going to drive everyone to our product.
That's amazing.
Just, yeah. Well, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that Disco Inferno haunts.
Nope, me too. And now everybody on Twitter, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. Some people shouldn't have Twitter. They just shouldn't.
Uh-huh. Yep.
He's one of them.
Yep.
He's definitely one of them. It's sometimes really impressive what people with not great legacies can really do to themselves.
Yep. There's a lot of names that come to mind. Yep.
It's just like, how did you make this worse?
I know. I know. It always feels like sour grapes to me, like certain wrestlers that didn't get like the push or the career they either could have had, should have had, wanted to have, and then they just age and then get really bitter about everybody else doing anything with their lives that brings them joy.
Yeah. Yeah, it that's definitely what it reads with him and some others, but definitely Disco.
It's sad.
I do have to say, like, I kind of do love the name though, Disco Inferno as a wrestling name. I just because it sticks with you. You hear it once and it's there.
Yeah. Kind of like Fandango. I'll never forget Fandango. Fandango.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Never.
yeah. Um, so Jackie does not last very long in WCW. I tried to research exactly. So I listened to an Eric Bischoff interview where he said that Jacqueline was let go, but because someone said, "Oh, you fired her," and he was like, "We didn't fire her. Like it wasn't something like that. She might have been sent home, but he was like, honestly, it's so long ago and it wasn't like something dramatic, so I don't remember." Like
Okay.
he said, like he doesn't remember her being a problem or anything like that because I guess Meltzer put out that she refused to do an angle where she would lay down for Miss Elizabeth, where like she would attack her and leave her laying. And I was like, I don't blame her if that is the case. No offense to Miss Elizabeth. She wasn't a wrestler.
Right. Right.
And Jacqueline had someone like a man taking and saying that, like, oh, she should beat me in the ring. She was fighting Disco Inferno. And Miss Elizabeth is going to be who you have. Like, no, I would have pushed back on that too if I were her. And again, no disrespect to Miss Elizabeth. If they said Sabrina should be the one to attack Jacqueline and leave her laying, no, like I also could not harm that woman. Like it's just not believable.
No, no. And things like that really make me think about what if Jacqueline had started wrestling now, like if she had risen to popularity now within this era, what could
Mm-hmm.
have been? I mean, I have heard that she has made comments about going against Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, like as recently as 2022. So, I mean, I would love to see her with go against both of those women. Would be incredible. Like Bianca versus Jacqueline too. Take my money, please.
Mm-hmm. And Bianca is someone, and Charlotte have both said that they've drawn inspiration from Jacqueline.
Hmm.
And we saw her in the Women's Rumble in 18, 2018, I think. Um, yeah, I think so. I think it was 2018. So I mean that was a while ago, but not that long ago. So come on, Jackie, get back in the ring. That's all I'm saying. Lita did it. Trish is doing it.
Yeah. Oh, see, that's a great point. I hope that would inspire some
Hmm.
wrestlers from that same era to come back because there's a lot of women that could still go.
Molly Holly's another one that springs to mind.
I feel like she hasn't aged a day either. I know that's obviously like the more vanity side of things, but she's still stunning and just seems like a lovely person.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so when Jacqueline comes to WWF at the time, so her run in WWF, which she is most known for, and is where both you and I know her from,
Yep.
was from 98 to 04. Um,
Hmm.
and she debuted on screen as Mark Miro's girlfriend, immediately starting a feud with Sable. Oh boy. The feud with Sable, that's where we get that bikini contest where Sable has the painted on hands, which
Yeah.
disqualified her from the bikini contest, and Jackie won by default. It's no part of that is good.
No,
Like,
just terrible. And like
yeah.
the instantly straight out the gate pitting women against each other, like playing off of all of these outdated kind of stereotypes of like, you know, because Sable was supposed to be with Mero, and then they split, the whole thing, and then Jackie comes into the picture, and it's like women can't be like, oh, like you're with this person now. It has to be like a cat fight type energy, and yeah, just so irritating. And I know you're gonna go through it too, but that's such a common theme of like Jacqueline being like a secondary character to so many men consistently throughout her career, and it just frustrates me so much.
Yeah. Or in one case, a third dairy.
Ugh,
But
ugh, ugh, yeah. Ugh.
yeah. Um, the good thing, I guess, about working with Sable, who couldn't really wrestle, if we're being honest. Like she wasn't one that I've never heard someone be like, Sable, her wrestling skills were really undervalued, because they weren't. She did not want to wrestle. Like, I've heard so many things from like women of that era. Ivory will really like go on tirades about it, but Sable had a good platform in WWF at the time. So Jacqueline, throughout a lot of her time, is in the picture for the title, at least. Like, she's having championship matches. Sometimes she's winning them. SummerSlam, the year in '98, that the year she debuted, her and Miro, Mark Miro, not
Yeah, yeah.
Seth Miro, faced Sable and Edge, otherwise known apparently now as Sedge, at SummerSlam, which, I mean, having just started, that also had to be really exciting for Edge as like a young wrestler coming into the company, and then being, I think that had to be before the Brood, right? '98. It's probably right before it.
Just yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So not long after that controversial, there was a controversial evening gown match on Raw where, I'm not sure if it was Sable or Jacqueline, but one of their breasts gets exposed on national television.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. I did not remember it until reading, like doing like there was a write-up on it, and I was like, of course there was a write-up on this.
Oh, that's so mortifying. I can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Later that same month, though, Sable and Jacqueline fight for the women's championship, which had been vacant since 1995, and we're in the end of 1998. That
And
really tells you what WWF thought of their women's division.
exactly.
We're just gonna leave this vacant for 3 years, and yeah. The good news is that's when Jacqueline wins and becomes the first ever Black woman to hold that belt, which again is, it's wonderful that Jacqueline broke down that barrier. It's stupid as hell that it was in 1998 that happened.
Yep.
But I mean, we see again that she is having firsts. This is probably the first that most people remember her for,
Mm-hmm.
rightfully so. Um, she only holds the belt though for about 2 months, and then Sable wins it. Um, yeah. Um, After the split with Mark Miro, Jacqueline,
Sorry, your face is just like it's hard to get through this, and I feel it too.
yeah,
I feel it inside.
Jacqueline teams up with Terry Reynolds, and I love Terry Reynolds.
Yes, yes.
But they come together in Vince Russo's wet dream of PMS, Pretty Mean Sisters.
Yeah.
There is an angle where D'Lo Brown accidentally bumps Terry off of the apron and she quote miscarries.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. And then D'Lo Brown becomes a servant to PMS and like does all of their bit. Like, it's not good. It's not good. And it doesn't get better. It does not get better. Like a
I
doctor,
remember.
yeah,
Oh, I, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
a doctor eventually tells D'Lo that like, oh, that never happened in his servitude. He's now free. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I remember there being like a whole angle where one of his like acts of servitude, he had to go get Jacqueline and Terry like tampons out of the store. I remember that.
Yeah,
Stuff like that. That's just like, and I remember like growing up and being like the only girl that I knew that was into wrestling, you know? I was like 8, 9, 10, however old through all of this stuff, you know, and older, loving wrestling and having like that's like around the age that guys kind of boys start treating you different too, you know? And so hearing like PMS and that whole thing, and then like they ask their dad what that means, or their parents or whatever, and or their older brothers or whoever, and then that kind of gets ingrained. So I literally have memories of like little boys like either making fun of me or like other people about like, oh yeah, because you're just PMS. And it's like, you know, being like a girl being like, what? You know, like I'm like 9 or 8 or you know, it's just
yeah,
like,
that's
yeah,
not
I remember
happening yet. Like,
exactly, yeah. And like I remember that being like one of those defining moments as a younger girl too, where you realize that you're different, that you get treated differently than boys, you know?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I I don't have any memories quite like that.
Hmm.
But I remember like this angle makes you really like embarrassed, like the act of like forcing him to go to the store to get them tampons just reinforces the shame of having a period and needing menstrual products. And like as someone who I was probably about to like start my period if I had not just, and like
Hmm.
that just like reinforces that shame that was already there. I feel like that has really shifted. And like you see like period clubs and things like that in schools, and you know, millennial and Gen Z men have pads and tampons available in their homes when they don't live with women, for people who are visiting, who are menstruating. Like, yes, this is the direction we need to go, not whatever happens in Vince Russo's mind.
Exactly. And I can't even imagine what goes on in his house. Yeah, just no, thank you.
I think actually the inside of his mind is one of the circles of hell. Like, if hell is real, that's where it is.
Oh my God, that reminds me. This is a total tangent, which I feel like that's my specialty is like tangenting off of topics, but it reminds me of like American Horror Story, the Coven season. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but there's like a whole thing, spoiler alert, where it's like there's like a test and you have to make it through your own personal idea of hell. Being in Vince Russo's mind would be that test of like, and if you don't pass, you're stuck in hell, which is Vince Russo's mind.
Oh my God. That would be, oh my God.
Or
Oh,
or Jim Cornette's maybe, I think.
I, mm,
I almost did a spit take at your face on that.
well, I was trying to decide like who treats women better out of the two of them. It's honestly probably, I mean, Cornette is at least a progressive voter. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think they're probably just varying degrees of hell. Like one is one circle of hell, and then like I think Vince Russo's might be the deeper circle. Like if you've been really bad, that's where you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Valid.
Depending on your
I gotta toe the
gender.
line.
Yeah.
What you're saying is I gotta toe the line.
Wait, what?
I said what you're saying is I better toe the line.
Yeah. Um, so Vince Russo somehow manages to make the PMS storyline even worse. For like a hot moment in time, Ken Shamrock has a sister in storyline in WWF, Ryan Shamrock. And there's this whole storyline with Val Venus, where he's like seducing her, and that's how Ken Shamrock and him have this, because that's when he's doing his porn star thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait,
which
was Ryan Shamrock actually his biological sister, or was it
I
were
don't
they
think
just named
so.
Ryan? Okay, I was like just checking. I couldn't remember that part.
I can't remember. I'm going to say no, just because like I feel like Ken Shamrock would have had like a meltdown based on the things that she had to do. If it was his actual sister.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, just based on who he is on Twitter. So but so she becomes a jilted lover of Val Venus and
Mhm.
thusly joins PMS because that's where women go when they're jilted from romantic relationships. Because Terry and Goldust had just broken up in storyline. I'm not sure if that's in real life if they had broken up yet.
Mhm.
And Jacqueline had broken up with Miro.
Mhm.
So that's where they were going. And
So what's the message there? Like that jaded women who leave their relationships or can't be in a relationship, like they have to just all be together. That's the only place they're accepted or wanted.
and they just all have PMS together because their cycles all sync up uh
Oh my God.
and that's not
Wow.
the worst part.
Hmm.
Enter a wrestler who during this period of time was known as Meat. It's Sean
Oh,
Stasiak.
Pete. Oh God.
When I saw, because I watched some of the entrances with him, and like from the little clip, because I mean they're old, so the quality isn't that great. And when the thumbnail became larger, because initially I was like, when did Jackie work with Test? And then because I completely forgot Sean Stasiak existed, and then he popped up, and I was like, oh no, that's him as Meat. Oh my god. So Meat's whole thing was he was PMS's boy toy, and that's
Yeah.
putting it nicely.
Yeah.
Um, he he lost a lot of his matches because he was so tired of having sex
That's
with
right.
all the women that he had no
Oh
energy left
God.
to
Oh
fight
my.
matches.
Oh my God.
That was his gimmick. During this time, Ryan Shamrock leaves WWF. I don't know
I
why.
wonder why.
Yeah, they were doing such great things with her. Jacqueline is the one who ends this alliance because Meat was too tired to please her. I, I just
She's standing up for her pleasure, you know? That's a feminist power move right there. I'm gonna go with that.
that is a twist on it. Yes, yes.
I'm putting a spin.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's where they were going with it. That's what they were thinking.
Vince Russo was just trying to really work in feminist angles into storyline however he could. That was really difficult for me to even jokingly say. Dear God. Um, mm. So after she leaves that hot mess behind, um, Jacqueline does go on in February of the year 2000 to win the women's championship for the second and I believe the last time. And this
Yes.
time she beats a man Harvey Whippleman, who is dressed in drag, and not like in a Santina Morella type way,
Okay.
not in I am a drag queen who wrestles type way. It was
Wow. I don't remember any of this. That's crazy.
I did not remember that part. Yeah, yeah. I feel like this was an early argument that they were like Vince Russo was prepping for almost why trans women should not be in sports, in like women's sports, I feel. But
Setting the stage kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's what it tastes like. But um during this title reign, Jacqueline does have a feud with Luna Vachon. And I'm sure you are as well, a big fan of Luna's work. She was someone who
Yes.
definitely should have received more credit than she got. She should have had a title in WWF, but did not. And that was really the only like good little feud she had before losing that title to Stephanie McMahon, thanks to basically all of D-Generation X's work to dethrone Jacqueline.
Yeah.
It probably says something, though, that Jacqueline was trusted to work with Stephanie McMahon, who hadn't really wrestled at all.
That's a good
Um,
way to look at it.
that's the only good way to look at it.
She was pinned in, I want to say, 40 seconds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of the women's matches, like when I was looking up like our 5 minutes or under during the Attitude Era, which is no shock. No shock.
No,
And
it's
that
terrible.
includes pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Um Later that year in 2000, in June of 2000, Jacqueline competed in the first ever women's battle royal in WWF. She didn't win, but it was another first for her to stick in her cap.
Yeah.
Um, and then from that point on, we don't like she has a lot of from 2000 2004. She has a lot of title opportunities and stuff, but she doesn't cash in. Like she never. She has a really weird. You might remember this. She has a really weird storyline with Victoria, who at that time, Stevie Richards, he's no longer in Right to Censor. He's now some weird sex slavey where he likes being beaten up by women, or at least by Victoria. He wrestles Jacqueline.
Was this a Vince Russo storyline again?
Oh, but it reeks of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be safe to say that. It's,
Wow.
you know, yeah, a lot of bondage happening around that time. So, because there's other storylines that are happening there where one of the writers was definitely into BDSM. Like, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in like throughout. Like Linda Miles and her whole gimmick. She won the second Tough Enough, I think it was.
Okay. Okay.
She had like she was a full-on dominatrix. There were gimps that she had with her. Like it wasn't even coded. It was just here you go.
Wow.
Yeah, that I remember because I had questions for my mother about that. Mom, what's this? Can you explain?
Oh, I just want to know what your mom said to that so bad.
So my mother was very honest with me with those sorts of things. But I don't think that's something she quite understood, other than to say, like, some people have sexual fantasies that involve this.
Okay. I like the directness. That's good.
Yeah, because like what else can you tell your 13-year-old daughter when she's like, what's a gimp? And you don't have the internet to help explain, because I don't think she knew.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Kudos to your mom though for being just that's a good way just to directly say it without, yeah.
yeah, I asked her so many questions. I remember asking her one time what blowjobs were in the car.
Mm.
What is this? And when she explained it to me, I went, oh, did you ever do that? Or would you ever do that? And my mom said she actually remembered having the same exact conversation with her mother, and she just gave me the answer her mother gave her, which was, that is a decision that you will make mutually with your partner. In the
Okay. I mean, that's a safe answer.
It is. But like looking back, I'm like, I know what that means now.
I'm having like visceral flashbacks to the first time I saw There's Something About Mary, that scene
Oh,
where he's in the bathroom. I was watching that with my parents, I remember, and like he had it on his ear or whatever, and I was like, "What's that?" And then my mom was like, "It's hair gel, just don't ask." Oh my God. It's so funny.
yeah. Oh, there were, I completely understand why parents these days are just like, I don't have these conversations with my kids at these ages. You can't watch the same stuff I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Go watch
Yeah,
Bluey or whatever.
yeah, absolutely. I really, if I ever have kids, I swear, there's so many things I would just not want them to watch, like crazy stuff that I was allowed to. I grew up watching Attitude Era wrestling, you know? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, man, let's just watch some old wrestling, kids.
Yeah. If they're ever like, what was wrestling like when you were growing up? It'd be like the Kermit meme, like the
Oh yeah. Well, you're having like war flashbacks in your head.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Like I think I would only show the TLC matches. That's it.
That's valid. Yeah.
You're like, this was wrestling back then. Only this, nothing else ever happened.
Oh my God. We were literally going back and watching, before like a pay-per-view comes up, like SummerSlam just happened. So I went back and watched like older SummerSlams, you know? Jeez, the amount of times that like King says the phrase puppies, literally in like a 10-minute period is insane. It's
Yeah.
like, wow. It was just, and it was so, Ryan was getting so pissed watching it. He's like, you have to just fast forward. I can't watch this crap anymore.
Just needing to mute King is really like, I wish I could just do that. Just mute him. JR on his own would probably be fine. Taz and Michael Cole is where it's at. That's probably why they were my favorite commentary, because like Taz wasn't sitting there saying that kind of stuff. Probably because his wife was watching at home. She was like, I will castrate you. Um, and Michael Cole's just never been like that kind of commentator. So, and
Never. Which is also why I know that we're jumping all around, which I love, not gonna lie. But Michael Cole, I think that's why he got so much crap for so long. Because granted, he's gotten phenomenally better. He just gets better and better as he ages on commentary. He's fabulous. But because he was such a departure from what we were used to growing up with like how kind of grid like grimy and graphic the commentary was, and like literally explicit, unhinged kind of, and then that transition, I think people just felt kind of gypped about that in that way, kind of jaded about that. So, but looking back, it's like I just have a lot of respect for him for kind of turning the tides in that way, honestly.
yeah, like, and it's weird that him and Taz were really the ones that like set a different tone, because Taz came from ECW, Taz came from like by no means should, and Taz is, I think, my favorite commentator right now, period. Like I just love that man.
Yeah, he's solid, honestly.
Just perfect. He's I loved MJF forcing him to eat a pickle and him being like, I can't, the salt, it's too salty, my cholesterol. I was just
I
like,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was saying, I was like, oh, that one hurt my childhood a little bit. Your cholesterol.
I actually like I can't wait to see what happens with this whole Hook and like Jack Perry thing with Taz. I just want him to just get involved so much and just Yeah.
Like, oh, you almost kind of expect him just to like start spanking him, like a
Yes.
father, like just coming down and being like, nope, nope, you've acted up.
Yep. I love it. And I kind of feel like that he has the FTW belt too. And then we saw RVD in the ring with him. I almost feel like is that building for more ECW
Mhm.
alumni to kind of come in and I don't know. Be
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah. Taz keeps saying, no, it's not going to be me. I'm done. Da, 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 da. Maybe we'll get a match where, Taz is in Hook's corner and Jack Perry tries to cheat and he like stops that.
Yes. I would love that.
Yeah. I just hope they don't drop the ball on Hook now. Like, I think Hook is less likely to suffer what so many people in AEW have suffered, being that Tony Khan's really great at building superstars or wrestlers and then just dropping them.
Yeah.
I don't know if he thinks that they'll be fine on their own while he builds others, but like they wind up being forgotten about. I think Taz being there will be advocating for Hook, so maybe that doesn't happen to him. Or at least if he's out of a storyline, he won't be out of it for as long as others. Uh,
Agreed. Like, who the hell's gonna say no to Taz if Taz tries to like advocate for his son? They're like, I wouldn't want to say no to Taz.
all of a sudden, you just slowly feel like Taz is about to put in a submission on you, and you're like, no, it's fine. He can. You write it. You write the storyline. It's fine.
I feel like Taz could just look at somebody and get anything he wants, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I also definitely see Taz having that like dad stare as well now.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
it's not like that's how I feel. Like it's not so much the like I'm going to grind your bones anymore as so much as like I'm very disappointed in you and you're going to make the right decision or I'm going to make it for you.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I'm so sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
Taz, Mr. Hook's dad. I'm sorry. I won't make you eat pickles anymore. um back to Jacqueline now. So during the last half of her WWF, I think it was still F run, we started seeing her do things like referee. She was the first female referee I ever saw. Um, I don't know about you, but she's the first one I ever remember seeing, and I thought it was really cool that she was doing that. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know how cool she thought it was, but I mean, it kept her on screen, so that definitely had to be a plus. Um, and we also saw her as like with the APA in backstage segments and sometimes wrestling with them as well. Um, but I remember also thinking that was like the height of liberal feminism right there was Jacqueline joining like Bradshaw and Farouk, who were like the manliest of manly men, boys, smoking cigars, drinking beer, and playing poker, and then her yelling at them to like give her a beer and stuff like that. And it was just like, this is the height of like the girl power movement in wrestling right there. Um,
Yeah.
like, but her persona really lent itself to that of like, take no shit. Um, it was believable, especially since she was also fighting the men. She was going up against Crash Holly. She did beat Chavo Guerrero when he had an open challenge for his cruiserweight championship, so she was the
Yeah.
cruiserweight champion, which was super awesome. I mean, she lost it back to him at Judgment Day later that year, but she
A win is a win.
hmm. Yeah. I thought she also had the hardcore championship at some point, but I couldn't find that. But I feel like I remember her winning it. But so many
Oh,
people had that.
interesting. I don't have a memory of that, but I could be wrong.
She could have also just picked it up once and smashed Crash over the head with it. And I'm like, yeah, that's
I loved her versus Crash Holly though. For
mhm.
real. Like, yeah, that's one that I have gone back and rewatched that match before and it's it's fabulous. Like you can
Yeah.
really see what she's capable of.
Yeah. And I mean, she was also during that time, like, she was
Okay.
having her and Lita had like a hardcore match too.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so Lita and um Jacqueline were having like hardcore matches during this time. Again, it's not something that you saw women really doing during that era. Or, well, they don't really have hardcore matches so much anymore in general.
no. I mean, I feel like I know I'm tangenting again. But I really love like that match too with on Rampage earlier this year too with like Ruby Soho,
Mm.
Anna
I,
Jay, Willow. It was this like kind of like the street fight and it was all bloody
oh
and
yeah.
yeah, it was fabulous. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like in those moments Jacqueline would do like really well now. She
yes.
So one of the things, so Ivory was asked in an interview about working with Jacqueline, and she said she was a really stiff worker. And
Mm.
I was like, I can imagine she would be, because especially I think during that time being a black woman who is half the time working with men, like, and she was tiny. I think she's 5'2". So like, yeah, I can imagine her being a little rougher to be taken seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
But I mean, that was the only bad thing she had to say about Jacqueline, and that's really the only like negative-ish thing that I heard, was that she was, and like that's a very common thing to hear from the Attitude Era, that people were stiff workers. So
Mhm.
it's less common, I definitely feel like, to hear it now. But
Yeah, for sure.
um but yeah,
Unless
Trish,
it's in reference to older wrestlers, typically. Yeah.
yeah, or like European wrestlers as well. Like Gunther is supposed to be like, ah, just
Yeah.
destroying people. Trish also has said that like Jacqueline's one of the people who trained her basically, like with, and said she was really kind and patient with her and got her you know, really helped her out in the beginning of her career, which makes sense then why they would have chosen her. She was on the first season of Tough Enough. She was one of the trainers. They had two female trainers. It was Jacqueline and Tori, not Tori Wilson, Tori that like had that angle with Kane and X-Pac Tori.
Yeah.
Man, she was like I remember even watching Tough Enough and being like, why is she one of the trainers? But you know,
Yeah.
the male trainers, of course, were Taz and Al Snow. And I think that's when everyone got all gooey about Al Snow. And yeah, he was just such a little love bug on Tough Enough. But yeah, Jacqueline, it makes sense that she would have been one of the trainers on that, because she apparently was doing it backstage anyway.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
She was let go from WWF, WWE probably at that point in June of '04, because, quote, creative didn't have anything for her.
That's lame.
Yeah. And I think Ivory was let go for the same reason. A lot of like the women, I think Jazz was eventually let go for that same reason. Jazz did an interview where she had pitched, and Jacqueline did, them being a tag team, and they were like, you should get some tag belts and for the women, and you know, well, but the office didn't buy into it. But how, like, even now, I would love to see that tag team.
I was just gonna say the same freaking thing. That would be awesome.
I was like, pitch it now.
Book it.
Just like, I'm sure some people would have some very negative feelings about that, being like, yeah, they can't book the tag division, so they're bringing back legends to do that. And while there's some valid thinking in that, my inner child would just be so excited, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's really interesting though is like there is a certain level of nostalgia with that where it's like I'm just like I just want to see it because of that, you know? Like I
Mhm.
was actually excited. People were really giving like Trish and Lita a lot of crap for coming back, but like I'm excited to see her and Becky square off, you know, her and Trish.
Yeah, and I think as long as they keep out of matches like Trish in a ladder match or something like that, don't add in a new thing because that has just a different flow. And
Hmm.
Trish does not seem to excel in that. It seems to be difficult for her. A traditional match, not so much. Like that's absolutely fine. And I like the storyline, and I like that in theory it's going to do a lot to elevate Zoe Stark, and I like Zoe Stark. So
I do too.
um did you watch TNA at all? Like when Jacqueline was, yeah, I didn't either. Yeah. Well, she went from WWF right to TNA. She debuted in November of '04. Um, she goes in and out of TNA in between there and like the independents for like the rest of her career in the ring.
Mhm.
She was there pretty solidly from '07 to '09, having a storyline with Gail Kim, which I mean, at that time, if you were in TNA and you were fighting Gail Kim, you were pretty much so the top of the card from everything that I know about that period of time in TNA.
Mhm.
They competed in and she defeated Gail Kim in TNA's first ever women's steel cage match. So again, just racking up those firsts.
Crazy.
Hmm.
Is there any type of, I mean, other than like of course Guinness with like world records, is there any type of like compendium with different like wrestling stats? Because I'm curious because I almost feel like Jacqueline would be like number one ranked for first.
I think she might be. I think Natty at this point is probably like,
Oh yeah, she's got a ton.
yeah, yeah. I feel like she tries to like now since it's so well known that she does all of these first. I think she tries to like be like, I should be in this. That's my thing. That is her gimmick now.
Yeah, 100%.
But I
She's
think
done so much.
yeah, she has done a ton. I have so much respect for Natty too. Like just staying during when she started and everything she did for the women's division to she's trained so many of the wrestlers and yeah.
Man, like especially for the longest time, like what a thankless job. And she stuck with it for just like a genuine love and passion for the business, for what she does, you know? I think about that all the time. Of
Yeah.
course, I did watch Total Divas as well, you know? And so
Mhm.
like I remember, of course, things are obviously dramatized and edited, you know, but there was so many situations where it was like she was just trying to be so positive and just spin things in a way to focus on like the business and how it could benefit it and like yeah, I feel like she just made so many pushes for just like the women's division and just trying to make it better.
Yeah, 100%. And like her and her husband TJ just like they're training people now and like helping people like shake off the ring rust and all
Mhm.
that stuff. Like they've opened basically a modern day heart dungeon in Florida. So I think Natty's impact on the wrestling business is going to be, I mean, I think it already is legendary, but I think there's even so much more for her to do going forward, which is like, I think in the long run, she's going to have one of the careers like a Mae Young that we're going to talk about for decades after she's done in the ring.
I really think that she's starting to get a little bit more of her roses, but I think that for whatever reason, we just never recognize talent until they retire.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's going to be the people who like shit on her all the time too that are going to be like, she was the best. She was great. They don't make them like Natty anymore. And then you rewind 10 years before that and they're just talking shit about Natty, you know?
Oh
I
yeah,
just,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's always how it goes.
yeah.
Um, with Jacqueline. In 2016, she was inducted into the Hall of Fame by the Dudley Boys. I thought that was kind of strange because you would have thought it would have been the APA, but
Yeah.
um, I think she got to choose who did it. So Dudley's, I mean, they were, yeah, she did work with them, I know, because of I think some matches with probably with Molly Holly when Molly was with Spike.
Yep.
Oh, I Molly Holly was in a lot of really fun storylines. And I mean, it was always because of the men she was attached to, like the Mighty Molly stuff and whatnot, but that's a whole other podcast to do. Um, but yeah, a lot of women credit her today with inspiring them: Alicia Fox, Bailey, Bianca Belair, Jazz, Naomi, Nyla Rose, and I'm sure plenty of others as well.
Yeah.
And again, if anyone happens to know how to get in contact with Jacqueline, let us know.
I feel like I'm gonna try to do something now. I feel like I'm gonna stalk this poor woman and try to find her. Come on the podcast. And then I'll be like, watch this episode, and she'll be like, why the hell are you talking about Taz so much? It's supposed to be my episode. She's like, I swear, if you bring up that goddamn parking lot fight again, I'm gonna find a way to like bring up that parking lot match into like every conversation we have.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm still just so glad no one was seriously injured during that.
Yeah. Oh my god, me too.
Um,
Scary.
I'm sorry, what?
I said that's scary.
Yeah,
Those types of matches freak me out.
yeah. Anything where it's like hard concrete, like oh, I cannot imagine Trent's poor mother had like twice now. I mean, she's been there for it, but like she just has to be like clutch, like, oh, it's like I birthed him. You better not hurt my baby.
I
Other than how
know.
you're supposed to hurt my baby.
She's literally getting a front row seat to like a freaking like street fight with her son.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can't even imagine that would freak me out so much.
Her Greggy. Her Greggy. Like,
Greg, exactly.
my God. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I love the fact that like Chuck Taylor's mom is like he joked and he's like, she has a little beef with Sue because she's never asked to be a part of any of this. Just like
Okay.
she brings it up apparently at holidays, like when am I going to get to
Oh my
Dynamite?
God. Tony Khan, make it happen for like part 3 of this parking lot fight.
Just have like both moms be in their sons' corners. Like just little shirts on them.
See, now I'm
Greggy
tempted to
and
just
Dustin, Dusty. You can't say that because that's a whole other wrestler. But
right.
oh,
See, now I'm just gonna keep tangenting off on AEW, but like Orange Cat, like they keep doing like weird things to Orange Cassidy and John Moxley too, to where I almost kind of thought that maybe they were gonna set up Mox versus Orange Cassidy for the international title. I was kind of waiting for that to come on the All In card. I don't know.
you know, I don't think it's going to be on All In because he's scheduled for like a 3-on-3 for that.
Oh,
Um,
you're right.
but maybe All Out. I don't know. I John Moxley had better not beat Orange Cassidy for that title. All I have to say. I will be very upset if that's the way it goes. Very upset.
Could it be Yuta?
I would
I
be
kind of
fine if it was Yuta. That would be perfectly fine. I feel like it'd be such a waste because like Orange Cassidy's doing such a good job of like building that up. To John Moxley doesn't need it.
he doesn't. Yeah, I love John, but you're right.
Yeah. I'm not even 100% sure that Wheeler Yuta needs it at this point, but he would need it more than Moxley, obviously.
True. I'm still shocked he got the pin on Kenny at Double or Nothing. That was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big push for him.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Do you have any final thoughts on the wonderful Miss Jacqueline?
Triple H, if you ever watch this for whatever reason, bring back Jacqueline. I'm saying triple threat match, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, Jacqueline, or I would even take Charlotte versus Jacqueline, Bianca versus Jacqueline. Book it, Triple H. Come on.
Yeah. I would even happily see Jacqueline back as a manager. I'll take her as a referee again for like women's like hardcore matches or something, or
Yeah.
men's cruiserweight matches, although they're not called cruiserweights anymore, but that.
I love that you brought up the ref thing again too, because I actually really liked that they had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat as a ref on AEW. So I
Mhm.
would love to see more legends come in as refs. I think it's
Yeah.
so fun when they do that.
Yeah. I would say Tony Khan should have her come in, but I don't trust Tony Khan even booking her as a ref. So she's had enough bad booking.
You,
Um,
I almost made a comment about that when we were talking about Jazz and Jacqueline, because I feel like Tony Khan really likes to bank on our nostalgia sometimes like that, so he would book something like that.
yeah, yeah. I would trust TNA Impact now more so with that than Tony Khan because we don't need another 5-minute squash match with women.
Oh, Jacqueline and Trinity. I would live for that match too. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, especially since Trinity had said that, Jacqueline inspired her, which makes so much sense. Like, because I think, well, no, she's still from the South. So,
Yeah, that's cool though.
yeah, I could see Jacqueline like being like, I'm down. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just think I genuinely believe that a lot of the old, like, I don't even like to say older wrestlers. It seems like a slap in the face because she's not even like old to me.
Hmm.
Um, but like just bring back some of these legends. I feel like they still got more in the tank, We saw Booker T come out at Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
So
he said that was his last go this time, which, yeah, his spinneroonie was a little sad, but
yeah, I was a little sad by that, but
yeah.
yeah. I still would love to see some more legends. I know I'm tangenting again, but with that Royal Rumble, I was expecting there to be some more legends kind of coming out.
I think like on one hand it does like for the women's it shows like they relied so heavily on legends the first time. It's great to see that the rosters are so stacked they don't need to now.
Yeah,
That being said, I would have gladly have traded a Nia Jax for a Jacqueline,
yeah, exactly.
just saying.
Yep, I concur.
Mr. Triple H. But do you think you can remember how to do the sign off this time?
Oh my God, I literally wrote it on a piece of paper last time and it's gone. All right, I kind of want to try it though.
All
I'm gonna
right.
wing it.
All
Okay,
right.
all right.
So, in the name of our Lord and
Our Lord
Savior,
and Savior, John
John
Cena,
Cena, hustle,
hustle,
loyalty,
loyalty,
and respect.
respect.
Yabadoo.
I always want to say yabba dabba doo.
Put a little pepper on it.